What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel, your go-to place for all things Lions related. That includes news, updates, analysis, and so much more. And today you are here with me and Morgan as we give you guys a bonus film study. Last week we were not able to get our traditional, normal, weekly breakdown of the Packers out ahead of the Lions versus Packers game on Thursday night. So to make up for that, we're basically looking back at Thursday night's game and talking about some of these fourth down calls. Because Morgan, I have never seen a coach who won a game off of being bold get questioned as much as Dan Campbell has. And so I think it's just a good idea to just go through the plays and really break them down X's and O's wise, talk about what made these such good decisions. But also shout out to JC over on Twitter for actually requesting for us to do this. So I don't even want to take full credit for us being proactive in this, but I do think it's very timely, his request with some of the news that's been out there about Dan Campbell over the last couple of days.
Man, I'm convinced that people that are, have their feathers all ruffled about this Dan Campbell thing are just people who don't watch the Lions all the time. I'm convinced because none of these, the last one, people can be it's a little crazy, but not when you look at the context of the game. That's my biggest thing. Every decision, there's analytics behind it. There's numbers that they can rely on these days, but there's also just a gut feeling and how you're, just the flow of the game and the context around the situation. So I wasn't bothered by, I was neither bothered nor surprised by any of the decisions. They went 4 for 5. We're going to break them down. And each of them have some pretty good nuance, whether it's schematic or someone just making a play. So it's a beautiful thing, man, because that's just, you had to gut out a win like that. I don't know how else to tell people that. I don't know why you're upset. You got to gut it out.
And that's my biggest gripe, right? Is that people talk about this as if the Lions were blowing the Packers out and they were going for it on fourth down, and that's how the Packers got back into the game. That's not at all how this plays out. These fourth down calls were pivotal to the Lions getting out to the type of lead that they needed to. You can argue, and you absolutely can argue, hey, you should just go for 3 in this situation. When you're at the 2-yard line?
That's what I'm saying.
When you're at the 3-yard line?
And ultimately, Dan, was happy with the way their defense was prepped. Ultimately, they're out so many people. They had several players that were going to be playing major snaps that had only gotten in town a couple days beforehand. So you knew you were going to have to score points. So at the end of the day, I just don't know why. That's my only explanation. If people are still surprised by the fourth down thing, you just don't watch the Lions week in and week out. Because if you did, you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, this is pretty normal.
I'll go a step further, Morgan. And I'm usually not this testy about these types of things, but I'm not gonna lie to you. It pissed me off this weekend. You're just disingenuous. Anyone that is complaining about this, anyone that is calling him a bad coach, I'm looking at you, Rob Parker. Clown. You're being disingenuous. You just straight up are being disingenuous, because we all know what the narrative would have been if Dan Campbell doesn't be this aggressive, right? Where the narrative is then well, this is why you can't coach to lose. This is why field goals get you beat. This is why you should be aggressive in these situations. It's so easy to call these plays reckless when it's you don't want to just keep heaping praise on this coach who's going very countercultural to what you've seen coaches do in the past in these types of situations. It's so easy to say that. But again, Morgan, as football fans, you and I can both attest to, whether it's related to the Lions or related to other teams, when analysts that come on and say, hey, this is why you can't coach scared, or this is why you can't settle for field goals. So when a coach doesn't do those things, now he's reckless. Now he's a bad coach. Now he's risking too much. Again, we talked about it in our last video. I don't want to over, saturate that conversation, but it's something that's just I sat back this weekend, saw some of the stuff that was being said, and I was this is just disingenuous. None of these people are being truthful to their opinion at this point.
Exactly. I'm right there with you, man. It's just clickbait, rage bait, or however you want to say it now. You get money off that kind of engagement, even if it is negative engagement. So I'm just slowly learning, because sometimes it takes me a while, but just learning to ignore it, because at the end of the day, this man is one of the best coaches in football, if not the best, probably the best leader of men. You just got to trust him. And he's a great balance of everything, man. In terms of leaning on analytics and then just trusting his gut and the flow of the game and the context of the game. So Yeah, I'm just buckle up, man. I don't know. Like if you're new to watching the Lions, this is how it goes. And like the reason they've won so many games since like the middle of 2022 is because they play to win games. Like they're not this ain't our granddaddy's game like anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like your grandparents' game, like where people like punting was like you punted. You just what you did. You played the odds, you flipped the field, and you see if you could. But those days are over. It's just more and more teams. Like Sean McVay was very aggressive when they beat the Rams. The Rams beat the Bills last night. Very aggressive, like on several
Mm-hmm.
occasions, because he knew he had to. Because their defense wasn't stopping Josh Allen. What was that, 44-42? Some stupid score. Like, yeah, that's a Big 12 game. You got to go for it. It's just the flow of the game, and there might come a day when the Lions defense is just balling, like in it, like Dan, it's 9-3, and there's some conservative punts because it's the flow of the game, man. I don't think Dan Campbell wakes up and he's like, I got to be this ultra aggressive guy. I don't think that enters his brain. He just cares about winning. Is it going to help me win? Probably. Okay, I'm going to do it. That's it, in my opinion. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, yeah. And like I said, like we don't have to belabor the point, but yeah, it's like I agree with you. It's not like Dan Campbell wakes up on Sunday mornings going into a game and is like, I'm going to go for every single fourth down today.
I
Like
think it's just
it's not.
situation dictates, man. Like it's just that's I know people outside of and like a lot of people watching this are probably very familiar with Dan Campbell as a person. Like people think he's like this like red blooded like meathead, but which I mean he is. He probably likes to eat steak and he drinks coffee and likes caffeine and chooses tobacco, but the man also has like many layers and like shades of like personality and the way he does things. So
I thought you were going
yeah,
to say mini. I thought you were going to say mini dogs because I was like, he does.
he's got a couple dogs too, like the little itty bitty dogs, man. He's got dogs like that are like 1/3 the size of my biggest cat. That's right over here to me. But yeah, but you know what? To each their own. And he can have those because he doesn't care to be the I think that's the biggest thing. I think people like
Mm-hmm.
start hating on it because they're like, oh, he's just trying to be super aggressive and like, yeah, man, and all I'm like, "No, that's not it. That's my biggest thing. I don't know how to like articulate that intelligently other than
Yeah.
that's not
No, but I think
it.
that, but that's also how it comes across. Like, I don't think you don't have to articulate it intelligently because the way the narrative that's being put out there is not an intelligent one. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
I don't
all
care how
just
many I don't care how many Super
yeah.
Bowls you won. I don't care how many awards
Brewski.
as a journalist you've won. I
Yeah.
don't care. You
Look at the
sound
proof is in the
stupid.
pudding. Agree, bro. Yeah, keep it. Yeah, keep it a buck. Proof is in the pudding. Go look at the records. There's those advanced metrics too. I shared one at the beginning of the year, like adding like wins over expectation. Dan Campbell is far and away number one in that regard. In the like the teams in the postseason last year. So people want to harp on the NFC Championship game, man. You were mad at the result and not the process because the process has won us a lot of games lately.
More games than
Okay,
I would
so
say than it's lost us.
way more, bro. I can only count on one hand that it's. And you know what? The only game I'd ever put on, I've said it on this channel, y'all. Probably I'll tell the fast forwarded one. But remember in 2022 when he elected to kick that long field goal, they missed it. Minnesota scored, and he like was teary eyed at the podium because that was on him. Like I don't say that lightly. I think it's always a mixture of things, like players not making plays, coaches not doing what they, that was on Dan. Like had he punted or gone for it there, the Lions had a pretty good chance of, and they needed a win at that point. That was when they were still skidding, not getting ready, not getting going in 2022 before they started picking things up. So I think that lives with him too. That's in his head, like I'm not playing to lose anymore because I did
Yeah.
that one time and it hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So with that said, I know I said it a while ago, like, hey, we're not going to belabor this point. In 9 minutes into this video, we belabor the point. But
We
it's,
got it out. Y'all probably enjoy it,
I was going to say, I got it out of my system. I had to say
feel
something
better.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I do feel a
feel
little bit
better.
better. And I'm going to feel a lot
Good.
better when we go through these plays because it does. It speaks to why Dan Campbell is such a smart and heady coach and why he does have so much faith in not just his players, but his coordinators as well. Because Ben Johnson called up some great plays. Did they all work? No, they went 4 for 5 on fourth down. But I think the design of a lot of these plays were spot on. So let's start with the first one, Morgan. We have the Lions. I believe this was 4th and 2, and the Lions are basically on the doorstep of getting. I think this was what their second score of the day.
Yes.
And so we have them lined up here, right? We have Tim Patrick at the top. We have a bunch tight end formed near the bottom, you have Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, and Sam Laporta. You have number 58, who is basically circled in blue. Everyone on the Packers defense is lined up and is in man coverage, right? So 58 is manned up with Jahmyr Gibbs. Quay Walker is the only person that is not accounted for in terms of manning up with anybody. He is actually going to be hot on a blitz here. And then Xavier McKinney, who I have circled here in red, is matched up with Brock Wright. And I reason I circled him is because I think Xavier McKinney gets lost in no man's land, Morgan. Like typically when you're in man coverage, if the guy that you are manned up with stays in the block, usually that's your go to blitz, right? But he doesn't. And I'm not saying that that would have changed how this play turned out because Jared Goff gets this ball out of his hand quickly. Jahmyr Gibbs wins quickly, but he gets caught in no man's land. And I think like that's just like a no in this defense.
Yeah, and really, you're in the red zone a lot of the time. You're doing one of several things because you're limited on space. And here, Ben Johnson's just hunting for a matchup, and he gets it with Jahmyr against a linebacker. That's just barbecue chicken all day. If you know, you know, Shaquille O'Neal. But Zylstra in the motion, it creates a little bit of a shift in who's guarding who. Just from what I can see from the other end that we're going to see here in a second. And McKinney, you're right. He sits on Brock Wright, who stays in the block, who stays in line next to Dan Skipper. I assume he was sitting there waiting to see if it was going to be a delayed release that the Lions love to do, especially in the red zone. So I think that's where McKinney gets stuck. But yeah, he doesn't really create much of anything, impact on the play. And I know Eric Schlitt was somewhere so excited that the Lions did this because this man loves a Texas route in the red zone. So a Texas route is, so you can watch my finger here. So out of the backfield, there's Goff. Jahmyr is going to press to the boundary like he's going to run into the flat, and he's selling it, right? His hips are there, and then he's going to put that foot in the ground and just cut towards the middle of the field, and dog never has a chance, man. This is easy peasy.
And this is one of my favorite plays in like any version of Madden, college football. Like halfback Texas route is just money
against man. Yeah.
And so, yeah, and Jahmyr wins very, very easily, right? So, again, we have it here from the end zone view. And like we saw at post snap, right? Like everything that Morgan laid out is exactly what happens. Jahmyr gets an easy press to the outside, gets 58, shifting all of his weight, thinking that he's going to run this flat route, immediately snaps it back inside. And there's nobody in the middle of the field because, like we said, Quay Walker's on a blitz. Xavier McKinney is in man coverage, so he's not expected to drop. If this is a different situation to where like it's some sort of like cover one where he's responsible for covering the middle of the field, he might get there, right? But again, it's still going to be dependent on where is his coverage supposed to be. If it's supposed to be middle of the field, then he's there, but he still would be behind Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion, in that situation. So to Morgan's point earlier, like how you were saying, like, hey, Ben Johnson is just hunting for matchups. He found the perfect play. Like this is why I think football is such a perfect like comparison to chess, because it is so much of a, okay, I'm going to make this move. Do you have a counter move for it? And in this situation, the Packers just don't.
Yeah. And this is why I love this kind of concept out of a formation like this, because putting all these tight ends in a bunch on the other side of the formation, it forces Green Bay to almost tip their hand. You know what I mean? Like you can only disguise things so much when there's three tight ends, eligible receivers off the tackle. So Jared sees this, and then you get a further indicator because, again, when Zylstra goes, I think it's 39, he travels with him. And then, like we talked about, McKinney stays with Brock Wright. So essentially, as soon as Goff sees Quay Walker go, he's like, oh, yeah, I got Ja. Easy. It's just exactly right. It's like it is really chess, man. That's why football is the beautiful game, just because, again, watch the motion. So it's just further confirmation for Goff. Boom. Easy money.
Absolutely, man. And again, this is what I love so much about what the Lions are doing in the red zone. And this is why like you can't really judge a fourth down play off of just like, oh, well, they went for it on fourth down. Did you have the right play call? Did you have the right like is it something lucky happy, or did you execute? Did you actually have like an advantage over what the defense was doing? And in this play, they did. In the next play, it's the exact same thing. It's a very simple play call with a quarterback sneak, but again, it's tells, right, Morgan? Like as an offensive coordinator, as a quarterback, you have to be able to read what the defense is doing, and that kind of tells you what you can or can't do. And so in this situation where Jared Goff decides to sneak this football, he immediately has a tell the minute he gets up to the line based off the spacing of the defensive tackles.
Yeah, he's probably thrilled because you got the guy in the essentially in the A gap, and then you got the three technique to the right. So it's really just easy. Those are easy blocks for Frank and Zeitler, respectively, to make. So yeah, like you said, as soon as Goff gets up under center here, he's like, "Oh, this is easy money." And Goff isn't someone I like to run the sneak a lot. He's just not a super powerful athlete like in the lower body. But this is just all you got to do is fall forward. So it makes it easy. You're 100% right, Miko. More context around the situation, right? Like the Lions knew, okay, you're at the 49 here. Yeah, we could punt them and pin them deep, but you know what? I like our chances of being able to pick up a yard here. And why not? The biggest thing is, too, I think Dan Campbell trusts this entire team front to back. But
Mm-hmm.
if there's one position group he trusts, probably maybe a teensy bit too much, it is this offensive line, let me tell you. So
Yeah,
he
because
just
you're
does.
expecting them. Yeah, he expects them to do their job, which is essentially just like get enough of a push. And because, again, I think it being chess, Green Bay's not expecting quarterback sneak, right? Like otherwise they wouldn't line up this way. I think what they
Exactly.
were expecting was like halfback
Off
dive to,
tackle.
or yeah, something like that to Jameer, because the way number 95 dives at like, it's like he's trying to cut Zilstra, or yeah, sorry, not Zilstra, Zeitler, before
Mhm.
he can even get going. So it's like before you can get going, like I'm going to try and disrupt this so that my linebackers can get here. The problem is you just make that easier for Jared Goff to go over the top of you for this quarterback sneak.
Yeah, and he sticks really close because he knows Frank's going to be able to. Is that Kenny Clark right there? As good as Kenny Clark was good too against the Lions on Thursday night. But yeah, just sometimes just alignment based, man. You come out in a certain, and you're not going to mess around. Just fall forward, pick up the first, and keep this drive moving.
Yeah, it's such a simple, just again, easy snap, easy. Like there's a little bit of motion that's really just there to just kind of move that linebacker out of the way.
Hmm.
Once he kind of gets the lineup that he wants, then boom, let's get it back. Easy peasy, like you said. Like this is the easiest of the fourth down calls that they had by far.
Yeah, and it's a we'll see one when the Lions actually don't convert, where the Green Bay responds to what they did on this one by putting a bunch of players right there in the A gap and along. Basically, they had four players between the tackles, and we'll get to that one here in a bit. But again, chess.
And I think that's the thing that's funny, right? Is like the minute you put it out there, like, well, now we have to worry about it. And prior to that, again, it's chess not just within that game, but it's chess based off of everything they've done that season. Like, if you're the Packers, you're probably looking at the Lions like, okay, they've probably run quarterback sneak no more than
Four
five times
times.
this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So there's no way that's what they're going to do in this situation when they have great running backs like Jameer Gibbs, when they have running backs like David Montgomery. They might try and do something like a quick pass or something like that, but they're not going to quarterback sneak this. And the minute they do it, it's like,
Woo.
okay, well, we can't let them do that again.
Yes, it's almost free money. If you don't have a player or two in that A gap that can stop things up and not be displaced, then the Bills run the heck out of the Lions' next opponent, who we're going to break down more once we get more into the week. Josh Allen is a great quarterback sneaker because he's 6'4", 250, and is strong as heck. So, yeah, that's something their Lions are going to have to be prepped for in short yardage situations because they won't even get up. They won't even get in the huddle, man. They'll just get to the line of scrimmage, boom, boom, first down.
I was gonna say them in Philly, right? Like they get
Yeah,
they lick their chops the minute they get into a short, like a third and
fourth and
one,
inches.
fourth and inches type of play because they're just like, oh, this is easy money.
Yeah.
And it's something that I wonder. And again, like I wonder if every team like has like a call for something like this, where like you get up to the line and you're like, oh, they're lined up like this. Let me check this to quarterback sneak. Like it feels like every team should.
Yeah, if you're prepped for it, and that's that's on coaching, and that'll be something the Lions for sure are going to be prepped for. I hope like DJ Reader and Aleem are up because that's a big answer. If you want to be able to stop a quarterback sneak, if you have those two on your roster, that's a good way to help stop that. But yeah, that'll be a good one to watch because that's going to be a test of the Lions. Fancy themselves a very very physical football team, and they've proven it a lot. But then again, so do the Bills, man, especially on offense.
Yeah, 100%. So on this fourth down play, it's 4th and 3. Lions are once again in the red zone. Again, 3 yards out. Sorry. And this is Tim Patrick's, I believe, first touchdown that he recorded in this game. Another great play design. Like again, everything that happens pre-snap to everything that happens post-snap is just perfection. And Morgan, I know you're a big fan of again how Ben Johnson kind of put this one together.
It's just the little wrinkles, right? Like we talked about, you kind of have to do weird or special things in the red zone because space is limited. So the Lions do this quite a bit. They pepper it in there, and I love that they do it because it's something that keeps a defense off balance. They'll break the huddle normally, but then the offensive line and everyone they get to where they need to really quickly and they get set, and it's just tempo. So right here, Green Bay is running around, and then they add a further wrinkle because you have St. Brown, and I think it was Orlovsky, like you said, Miko was making a big deal out of this, or it was Acho,
Mm-hmm.
Emmanuel Acho, but like St. Brown's in the backfield and Jameer's out wide, split out next to Sam Laporta off the ball. I think that's just a small wrinkle. It's not a huge deal because they're obviously like, okay, that's St. Brown and that's Gibbs after a minute. But as a linebacker or a DB, it's just one more thing like, oh, they're going quick and wait, and then boom, it's too late. So it's just it's a spacing concept, but St. Brown out of the backfield grabs a couple pairs of eyes, and Jared never even really looks anywhere else. You probably could have gotten Jameer on the backside slant, but
Mm-hmm.
Tim Patrick uncovers so quickly. And you know what? Feed that man. It's about time he scored a couple touchdowns, you know?
And the thing that I think is interesting about this play, Morgan, like you said, 45 is scrambling to try to get to St. Brown. And you and I were speculating about this like before the play actually happened, is I'm curious on like whether or not like who 45 had been matching up in man coverage with prior to this play. Because I feel like it was one of those things that sometimes happens more so in basketball, where like if you're, a lot of teams in basketball play, man to man, right? You have some teams that play zone, but a lot play man to man, and you play that in basketball and it's like, oh, I have 26. Like that's all you've been thinking all game. And then all of a sudden a switch happens and you're like, wait, 26 is not in the position that I thought he would be. Do I still have 26 or am I supposed to cover 14? And I think that's what happens with number 45 here is that like he probably was matched up with Jameer Gibbs on so many different snaps. So he's like in his head, I'm just going to wherever 26 is. 26 is out wide. Wait, if he's out wide, no one's covering the back. That's my responsibility. And it's like you said, lines go quick, get to the line, execute this play super quick. And Tim Patrick is wide open for this touchdown.
Yep. Sometimes it's as simple as that, man. Just a momentary, like, oh, you know what moment for the defense. And then you do it quickly and you catch them slipping. So the Lions, Ben Johnson's good at doing this. He mixes this in quite a bit, and he does it a lot of the time on money downs too, which I'm always appreciative of. Like hurry up, get to the line of scrimmage, snap, boom, that's a first down before you even have time to think about it. And so that's sometimes as small as that. That's what happens.
Yeah. And another wrinkle I did want to point out that's like more of a post snap wrinkle. We see a lot of teams run pick routes, right, Morgan? It's one of I even though teams run it, I feel like it's one of the more difficult things to run in the NFL because of like the whole like you can only have this many yards to make contact. But oftentimes when we see teams run this play, like it's going to the player that's getting, screened to get open. This is one of the few times where you see like the screener get the ball in Tim Patrick. So I think again, that's another great wrinkle because I think when you see a team like the Lions run a pick route concept for Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're expecting the ball to go to Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're not expecting it to come back to Tim Patrick in this situation.
Patrick runs a lot of these, and he's good at running the route to where they're not going to call OPI, which is it's a nuanced thing. Like the Packers did not do it last week. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah,
There's a difference.
Yeah,
There's a difference, man. It's night and day, and Tim Patrick is really good at doing that. So I was just really happy to see him score twice. That was cool.
Yep. All right, so that's the fourth down play call. Let's get to the fourth one. This is the one where the Lions weren't able to convert, and you and I both agree this has more to do with execution than it does with play design.
Yeah, and Ben Johnson calls the right thing, man. You don't want to run. I heard a couple people in our section. They were like, "Why did they not run up the middle there?" Look at it, man. There's 4 players inside the tackle box for Green Bay. They're daring you to try to run in the A or B gaps and then you have the box is just completely packed up. So this is good idea. It's a good process. It's just bad result. Panay misses a block on Quay Walker. I don't know if he didn't. I don't know. Maybe he thought Quay Walker would be further over but he's able to knife under Panay. And then there's just some weird communication between St. Brown and Brock Wright to where, I don't know, Brock White, he is white. Brock Wright gets too wide where everyone is right there to rally and make the play for Green Bay. So yeah, just bad execution, really. I like the play call because this is what you want to run. You want to run like a pin and pitch concept against a defense that has a ton of players inside the hashes, basically.
Yeah, and again, it's something that's very rare for Panay, and I think in this situation for him to not, again, get a player properly squared up. But again, it's also a good job by Quay Walker. Like sometimes you have to tip your hat to the defense on like, hey, making yourself skinny and being able to get past a talented tackle like this. But I think that's really like that's where this play fails. It has nothing to do with the design because, like you said, everyone's lined up in the middle in the A gap of this offensive line, right? So trying to run up the middle, you would be asking Jameer to do the impossible, which is essentially you would hope that he can maybe press the line and maybe bounce out. But
Yeah,
again, that takes a lot of like you're putting a lot on his shoulders to make this play happen. The way
yeah,
this is designed, it should have worked. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions, if giving another situation like this, they run this play again and it does work because all you're asking is like, hey, everybody get their block. And Jameer does a lot of, again, does still do some heavy lifting because he's able to make number 20 miss, even though Brock Wright isn't able to get a block on him. And if that block on Quay Walker is made, this is a first down.
yeah. You were in the alley, and you could, depending on what Ja does in space, some fun things could happen. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Ben Johnson probably, put a earmark on this one and was like, let me come back to it because I love the look. I just bad execution. And you can't be perfect on every rep, but just weird. I like the design though. I really do. And it was just a big swing play. That's why people were mad about that one. The Lions were up 24 to
Yeah.
21 on their own 31-yard line. So when they didn't pick that up, that was a big swing. But ultimately, still got the dub. So
And I can understand, again, I understand for that play more than any of the other ones. If you have a complaint about, like, hey, you shouldn't go for it on fourth down there because of where you are on the field, like that one makes more sense. But like you and I said, Morgan, during the flow of the game, it felt like, hey, the Lions need another score. Like the game is already too close. And yes, if they didn't get it, obviously we saw what happened. But it just in that moment, it felt like the Lions can't afford to punt the ball and give it, even if it's the other side of the field, you can't afford to punt the ball down there and allow Green Bay to go on a 7-minute drive to get a score. Like that feels more detrimental than what they ended up doing, which is quick score, but then the Lions get the ball back and are able to go down and score.
yeah, it's just complimentary football. Like they had just, the Packers had just put together a scoring drive, and you didn't want to give the ball right back to them. So I get it. And I think they'd only ran 3 or 4 plays at that point. If I go back in the game log, so yeah, I'm with you. Let's just if they execute that, they're going to pick it up, and they could have picked up the first down and then some. To be honest with you,
I was gonna say, if Ja gets that alley, that's probably a house call.
yeah, that'd be fun.
All right. So last play that we're gonna break down is the play that everybody is most familiar with. It's the game-winning or game-sealing first down that basically helps set up the Jake Bates field goal. Panay gets his revenge. I guess that's the best way I can describe this play. We talked about in the last play where like he doesn't quite get a good block on Quay Walker, which basically allows him to make the tackle. That doesn't happen twice, and I think that's one of the great things about Panay. Panay rarely makes the same mistake twice.
Yeah, and this is just bread and butter. So they're going to send Laporta in motion towards the top of the formation, towards the top of your screen, and him and Tim Patrick just get such a good job of sealing 58 and 29, basically kicking them out and creating one wall of the alley, and then Panay, just like you said, Miko gets such a good chip. It's a really good view from the end zone view, and then is able to climb and get Quay Walker. And shout out to Jared because he did get his foot stepped on. I saw that clip. Graham stepped on it as he's trying to get going down the line of scrimmage. So shout out to Goff for getting that off, man. That was a pretty athletic play from number 16. But yeah, this is a good view of Panay. So he's going to get that chip, slams him in towards the center, and then climbs up to Walker. This is a grown man play, all pro play. Bang.
And again, this is just understanding your personnel. And I think, like again, people can question it. People can say, like, "Hey, you're being reckless in this situation." You have a
You
chance
didn't want
to
to
win
give
the
the ball
game.
back to them. Exactly. Didn't want to give the ball back. We mentioned it in the last video, man. Like, yeah, you kick the field goal here, but then the Packers have like 38, 37 seconds to do something with it. Who's to say, like Miko said earlier, like in the last video, maybe they get a fluky DPI, like they gotten a couple of them. I'm not saying it was a bad call; it just happens to everybody. But I like the if you can finish it on offense and you think you trust your offense, then do it. And they didn't get the last one, so Dan Campbell's probably thinking like, well, I'm not going to miss two in a row.
Well, that's the thing that's
You
like,
know?
again, that's the thing that's hilarious is that they ran to
Yeah.
the same side twice. It's different plays, but they ran into that same side twice and
Five
you
eight, baby.
still couldn't stop it. And
Yeah.
it's like you said, Panay being Panay, the other guys with
Zeitler
Laporta,
playing well. Yeah.
Zeitler, Tim Patrick getting great blocks, and that's all you needed. You needed a yard. David Montgomery got you 7. Like
Easy too.
it's
Like, mm,
and that's what I'm saying. Like it's that type of football that has the Lions where they are, right? To be sitting at 12-1, to have a firm grasp of the NFC North, to be leading the NFC for that number 1 seed. Again, there's still plenty of football that's left to be played. They still have to continue to win. They still have to continue to battle. They have a tough game this week against Buffalo that we're going to dive into next in our next video. But I feel good about this team, Morgan. Like injuries be damned. Like they're still playing great football.
but yeah, no doubt. Like, I hate the next man up cliche, and like it's sometimes coach speak, but it's really like the culture that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and everyone has built here. Sheila, it just spreads through the entire organization. You had Ezekiel Turner out there making plays, all these guys that just we could go on and on. So at this point, man, I trust them. Like part of me was like, man, maybe they'll lose this Packers game. They're so banged up. It's been a tough stretch, and then they're like, nah, we're gonna figure it out at the end of the day. But I just trust them at this point. I'm just excited for these next 2 months. Really, that's what I hope.
I was gonna say like it's getting there, right? Like the anticipation of what the Lions are on the cusp of. Like every game, it's weird to say this, but it feels like every game almost feels like a playoff game. Like every game feels like you're getting that much closer to the Super Bowl.
That's what I
And
want.
in
That's what
actuality,
we
we're just
want.
getting closer to the playoffs, right? Like we're getting closer to that. And there's still so much football to be played, right? They have the Bills this week. They still have to play the Bears again. They still have to play the 49ers. They still have to play the Vikings again. That's it, right?
That's it, regular season wise. So really, just follow
It's
along.
like the
Pride of
longest
Detroit.
4 feels like the
Oh yeah,
longest
dude.
4 weeks ever.
It's going to be a long month. We got a month, basically. Yeah. So follow Pride of Detroit. Jeremy and Eric do a really good job of writing, rooting guides and ways that like explain seeding, like, path. Like the Lions odds for the 1 seed are really good, but it sure would be nice if Philadelphia and Minnesota lost a couple games coming up here, man. That would be really nice. Let's have that happen.
Jeez, Carolina, you were so close.
God, Xavier Legette, man. I still love you, but dang, man.
Oh, man.
That hurt.
But all right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this bonus breakdown of all the 4th down calls that the Lions had in their last game against the Green Bay Packers. Like I said, we will be back. Give us another day or two. We're going to get our film study of the Buffalo Bills. And listen, it's going to be a lot of Josh Allen. All right. It's going to be the
Yep.
man's
That's the
having an
best player in football
MVP
right now.
I was going to say, it's
Yep.
honestly being unbiased. It's probably between him and Saquon for MVP right
Agreed.
now.
I agreed. Yeah, I agree with you. But it's like him, man. The Bills just aren't like the Bills are a good team. Don't get me wrong, but Josh does so much for them, and it'll be fun to get into it because playing like a superhuman right now.
It's incredible to think that they would be in the position that they are in after, losing Stephon Diggs and, having some pretty big changes on that roster. Like I'd be lying to you if I said I thought they would be at 10-3 right now. But they are. They're contending for the AFC. They look like a real legitimate threat to the Kansas City Chiefs come playoff time. And we'll have to see if that plays out. But for right now, they're the opponent that the Lions have to take care of. And it's another great statement game, right? It's a great measuring stick to see where you are in comparison to not just another playoff team, but another like Super Bowl caliber team. And if the Lions can go out and have a good showing against them, I'm gonna be very interested to see what the narrative is next, Morgan. I'm gonna just leave it there.
Me too, because it better be even. Like I know a lot of people are giving us like our flowers and everything like that, but you still have these people that are like somehow not, and I'm like, man, whatever. So I don't even
Bro,
care anymore. If you're not a Lions fan, you don't live in Detroit, that kind of thing, then we don't care.
I ain't seen so many people moonwalk this much since Michael Jackson, man. I ain't
That's
gonna
true.
lie. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We appreciate you guys taking the time to check us out. Like Morgan said, if you are looking to keep up with any more Lions content, be sure to check out prideofdetroit.com. Eric, Jeremy, Morgan, A lot of the writers are putting out really good content over the next couple days. So definitely continue to support over there. And like we've always say, if you're looking to support the YouTube channel, or if you're looking just to stay caught up with everything we're putting out, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Both of those things help out the channel a lot, but it also makes it easier for you to find our content when we decide to push new things live. So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and go Lions.